What are your school's guiding statements, such as the vision, mission, and values, that say clearly who it is and where it's going, so that new and existing parents can buy into the model? What's your role as a board in shaping and communicating these ideas? In this video, we explore the board's responsibilities and opportunities for developing and reinforcing the school's guiding statements. Unless you're part of a brand new school concept, it's most likely that your school already has some form of guiding statements in place, which may include a vision and mission statement, as well as some other guidelines or values that are seen as foundational for the school. Now, before we go further to explore how they may be modified or embedded, let's first clarify what we mean by those two statements and why they're important. Not all trustees come from corporate backgrounds, and the power and subtlety of these may not be immediately obvious. First, with the vision, we know from our use of language that this is the ability to see, but it's also the ability to communicate something that lives in our mind's eye, to capture from your imagination to share with others in a way that they can share that vision. When Martin Luther King gave his famous "I have a dream" speech, he painted a picture through his words that people could understand, and they could see their own part in that vision. A vision is being able to see what others can't yet see. Not yet. A vision of what can be, and what's the direction you need to go. A vision isn't some finite point that will be reached, a utopia that can be achieved in a couple of years' time, but it's a constant north or pole star that guides you to where you want to be in the future. The school's mission, on the other hand, is rooted in the present and gives realistic but aspirational steps that are planned as mechanisms towards the goal, towards the vision of the school. So whereas the vision describes the goal, the mission statement will probably be longer, since it describes more of the how and the what the school does in clear, guiding and inspirational words in order to achieve the vision. Alongside the vision and mission statements, schools often have other guiding statements which may include values or beliefs that are foundational to setting the ethos within the school. Sometimes these values or beliefs may be extracted from when the school was founded, or from its constitution, or could have been developed through a consultative process. If your school has not yet defined its core values and beliefs, then this is certainly a valuable exercise, as it helps ensure consistency as the board and leadership of the school. It's important to understand that while the school's leadership and board may be in a state of transition, these guiding statements don't get modified each time the direction of the wind changes. There needs to be a balance between ensuring that the guiding statements are still relevant and alive in the organization, whilst also ensuring that the direction of the school isn't flip-flopping whenever new trustees are elected to the board. Some parents in the school may have little choice about which school they send their children to, or may only be for a year or two for a contract, while other families have multi-generational commitment and support. And of course, the selection of the right school for their children is a huge philosophical and financial investment. Imagine if you'd contracted a construction company to build your dream house, and halfway through the project the company announces that due to management changes, they were going to change the way they operated. You'd be rightfully worried that the company that you'd engaged for this important project, based on their original values of quality and workmanship, may now start to cut corners or treat you differently as a customer, so that the house of your dreams becomes a half-finished botched job, or that isn't fit for purpose. Of course, you wouldn't want that. You'd want any new leadership joining a construction company to honor the commitments that led you to choose them in the first place, and if anything, to inspire trust by enhancing the added value to you as a customer. As trustees, you're in a position of leadership, directly and indirectly, through your decisions, guidance and influence that you exert. And so the first principle is to honor the school's mission, vision, values or beliefs as they stand, so that the direction of the school isn't changed arbitrarily, which would lead to chaos. There may well exist a document in your board information pack that identifies when the guiding statements were last reviewed and when they're scheduled to next be reviewed. This process might happen every 5 years or so, and it's often done in conjunction with a strategic plan and its own review. It may be that the review leads to no change in the guiding statements, but at least they've been critically analysed for relevance and authenticity. Reviewing and revising the guiding statements is not an insignificant exercise and needs to be carefully planned to ensure that there's sufficient stakeholder input and discussion. While the responsibility for developing the guiding statements lies with the board, it's rarely an exercise that they can conduct in isolation. International schools tend to be communities built on shared values and aspirations for the children, and so the parent, teacher, and student voice is important when considering any change. It's likely that any review process would start with surveys of the parents, students, teachers, and of course the board, but would lead to a task force of kinds to be established comprising all stakeholder groups. Again, the process of review and revision would be iterative. It would not generally be possible to achieve any result from one meeting, but rather meetings of the task force would be used to inform discussions among staff, leadership, PTA, parent meetings, board and student councils, where suggestions and ideas are fed back to the task force before finally being presented to the board for approval and then dissemination to the whole community. While this approach is very time-consuming and might take months to complete, it is necessary if the voice of the stakeholder groups is to be properly heard. A common challenge for trustees and for parents is to see schooling and education from the perspective necessary to envisage what the future will hold, and therefore the skills, knowledge and attitudes that will be required for success. When considering the school's vision, mission and values, the majority of adults default to what they know best, what is their own experience as a child going through school, or perhaps their more recent experience of their own children at school currently. There's a natural tendency to look backwards at that experience when trying to shape how the school will look in the future, for children that have yet to even join the school. So if you think about it now, just think about the last 10 or 20 years and how the world has changed. You may have seen some of the Shift Happens videos, these explainer videos, that help put into perspective the irreversible and exponential change that's happening in our world. Whether the rise and fall of businesses, the gig economy, technology that's increasingly more affordable and powerful, or societal change, the only constant is that tomorrow it'll all be different. And who would have predicted COVID-19 and the impact that that's had on the world economy, as well as our perceptions towards online learning platforms? The point is this: your schooling from 10 or 20 years ago has diminishing impact on the world today, and then when you extrapolate 10 or 20 years into the future, which is the timescale for children in your school, then the world most certainly will be different again. The skills, knowledge and attitudes that will be essential for successful transition from school into work, whether employed or entrepreneurial, to make an impact in the local and global communities, to be happy, to be fulfilled, are not the same as the skills, knowledge and attitudes that were seen as important 10 or 20 years ago. The discussions around future needs, how to blend traditional values with contemporary learning, they're hard work, but essential if you're to create a compelling vision for the school. So whether you're preparing for the process of reviewing your guiding statements, as a trustee you should still take the time to reflect on the statements as they stand. Does your school's vision paint a compelling and memorable story that you can relate to when thinking about the school in the future? Does the mission statement reflect the principles and practice in the school that truly impact learning? Or is it full of jargon that could describe pretty much any school? Do these guiding statements, the vision, mission, values or beliefs, sufficiently express who the school is and what it does so that new parents would be able to make an informed choice? Do your school's guiding statements also reflect the realities that you see, or are they simply some theoretical perspectives that have little relevance to how the school actually looks? And how often, as trustees, do you use the guiding statements to help inform your decisions?